Live right now, by the way. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I was collecting my thoughts this morning and thinking about kind of just things that I've observed, not only over the last, few 2014, so a solid 10 years straight. We're good? We good? All right.
Yep.
So I'm going to share with you things that I know, that I've learned, that I remember from those 10 years, and then I'm also going to share with you things that I'm observing today, things that I see that successful people on the phones, the success they're having today, specifically in outbound phone calls and outbound prospecting to sellers. So if you're wondering, first of all, for those that are watching us live, we're casual today because we had a big snow day here in Detroit. So kudos to all of our associates who got in and are taking advantage of this what I hope is going to be great info for you. All right, so I'm going to go through the 8 reasons why you might not be getting the results that you want on the phone. Again, I'm specifically referring to outbound seller calls only, right? So if you're in here thinking, well, how do I get better results with buyers? Then there's definitely things in here that apply to that. But definitely this is more so your outbound seller calls, how to get the results that you want or what I'm seeing that people aren't doing, okay? These are in no particular order. It shouldn't take me more than 20 or 30 minutes to get through them. And of course, for those that are in the room or on Skype with us, we can have a discussion about them afterwards. I would just ask so I can get through them. Just save the questions till the end, so write them down if you have questions or whatnot, okay? All right, so again, these are in no particular order. Point number 1, I wrote down 8 reasons why you're not getting the results you want on the phone. Number 1 is you're not mentally and physically here when you should be. And I'll explain that, and obviously I'll repeat it as well. You're not mentally and physically here when you should be. Okay, so I'm going to define mentally and physically, and I'm also going to talk about what when you should be means as well. Okay, and by the way, this is not like, obviously a lot of what I've learned has been from Mike Ferry, from Floyd Wickman, from Gary Keller. This is obviously a combination of what I've learned, but more so it's what I've experienced, right? So I'm sharing with you what I personally have experienced. So you're not mentally and physically here when you should be. And I wrote down mentally, okay? Well, what I mean by that is, what are your distractions look like? Are there distractions? Are there too many distractions? Are you flipping the switch at the door? You guys have heard me say time and time again. It doesn't matter what happens to you on your way in. Last night, this morning, the cat spilled over your Cheerios and spilled milk everywhere. None of that matters. You flip the switch when you get to the door. Okay, it's go time. So I've created what is a very simple pre-prospecting routine, and this is just something that I have followed when I was prospecting for that 10 years in a row, and I would recommend any of our associates follow as well. And that is, when it comes to prospecting, and by the way, I'll use the term prospecting over lead generation because, to be truthfully honest, I think the term prospecting is too harsh of a word for a lot of people to hear, so that's how lead generation was born. And so I don't necessarily believe that lead generation is the same thing as prospecting. And what I mean by that is people think of lead generation as sitting in front of a computer and sending out mass messages and things like that, and that's fine. That is good stuff. That's good lead generation. But I'm actually specifically talking about prospecting on the phone. So here's my pre-prospecting routine. Number 1, it starts the night before. Okay? Your prospecting session starts the night before. Meaning, what do you put into your head before you go to bed? What time do you go to bed? Do you go to bed at the same time every day? Right? Are you mentally prepared for the time that you're going to start the next day? Right? I wrote down, again, mentally, you should arrive 15 to 30 minutes before your first dial. 15 to 30 minutes before your first dial. Now, I know this sounds a little elementary, and obviously, if you're wondering, like, when are you going to get to the good stuff, I'm going to get into the good stuff. But I think the mistake a lot of agents make, and I see it even sometimes with our ISA team, which, by the way, none of what I'm going to say today is directed at anyone individually, okay? It might sound like I'm talking to you, and if that's the case, good, then you're growing. But I'm not directing at anyone individually, right? So you should arrive 15 minutes to 30 minutes before the first dial. Why is that? Well, the reason is twofold. Number 1, because my mentality is the early bird gets the worm. I wanted to be the one that was there at 7:50, I started dialing at 7:59. I wanted to be the first person this seller talked to. Obvious reasons, right? But the second reason is because when you're late or you're running behind, guess what happens to your mindset? You're disheveled, you're flustered. You know, we had a few people, I get it, it was a snow day, but we had a few people that weren't in on time today. So guess what? They're now stressed, they're rushing in, they're trying to get their notes together, and they're not mentally prepared to hear this information. The same thing goes when you're prospecting. You have to kind of mentally get your head in the game a solid 15, 30 minutes before you start. I had a deal with somebody in my office where I wrote them 5 $100 checks. And if I wasn't in by 7:30 every day, that gentleman, his name was Frank, he had the right to cash those checks. And that got me in the 30 minutes prior. Because at the time, I didn't totally understand the value of actually getting in ahead of time. I thought, well, I can pull the numbers in 10 minutes. I can get my stuff together. I can get there 10 minutes before. I'll be fine. The difference between getting there at 7:30 versus getting there at 7:50 was huge for my mindset. And I learned that as I went on, especially after I had a few checks cashed. Next, what are you doing on your way in, or what are you doing? So some people ask, well, what do I do for that extra 30 minutes that I'm here? Okay, watch something inspiring, listen to something inspiring. I always had an audio CD. I know nowadays a lot of cars don't have CD players, so you have iTunes and whatever else on your phone connected. Even if you're only in the car for 10 or 15 minutes, just something that's like a little nugget. We're reading the book John Maxwell, Laws of Leadership. Having that audio downloaded and just listening to that. Again, even if it's just 10 minutes. 10 minutes of anything positive is far more powerful than 15, 20, or 5 minutes of watching the news or listening to what's going on with the roads. So something positive audio, video-wise that I would do before I would start prospecting. Again, I'm still kind of on mentally here. Mentally, there's 2 ways you can get your energy up, right? You can either get it up artificially through caffeine. I'm not suggesting that everyone go out and drink a bunch of coffee, but your energy's got to be high. So you can get it up one of 2 ways. Artificially with caffeine, or the way that I like to do it nowadays, especially now that I have a Peloton, is physically, through working out and breaking a sweat. You don't realize how much energy you would think, oh, if I work out at 6 a.m., I'm going to be exhausted by the time I get there at 7:30. No, it's actually the opposite. You actually have more energy, you're more alert, you're ready to go. So get whatever you have to do to get your energy up mentally before you start. Physically, well, I've already kind of shared the story of, because I wrote down the point, you're not mentally and physically here when you should be, right? Physically is getting prepared in place a certain amount of time ahead of when you're actually going to make that first dial. Again, you can't possibly be mentally and physically prepared if you're showing up at 7:55 and you know your first dial is going to be 8 a.m. Okay, you're going to be just like the other average agents out there that are showing up 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late and struggling to get started. Remember, it's not just about getting there and physically doing it. It's about your brain being clear and ready to go. Okay, so get out of that. If you're someone that is always late, you got to break that habit. How do you break the habit? You get an accountability partner. Write someone checks. Do whatever you can. The other thing when it comes to physically, okay, I took a lot of mindset breaks. I think that this is. When I see our inside sales team, I see many of them having some good mindset breaks, which is important. Sometimes those mindset breaks go a little bit longer than they should, but ultimately, your mindset breaks, for me, they were always scheduled. And the reason why they were scheduled is because if I just followed the instructions, which were, you got to take mindset breaks, well then, I would just take mindset breaks whenever. So I had a simple rule. I was 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, right? So it wasn't like I was prospecting for 2 hours straight and straining myself and getting exhausted. But I will tell you, when I was on for 50 minutes, I was on, right? Like I was solid. I was no distractions. I was intense. I was going. And when I was done with that 10 minutes, I was BSing, listening to something positive, going and refilling my water, going to the bathroom, obviously. I was off. Right, my mind was off from work at that point. So I was 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. Okay. The other thing, and this is something that I observe from time to time, and our associates, especially for those that are watching live, probably criticize me for this from time to time because I can be a little strong. So don't get mad. It's one thing to be friendly and have friends in the workplace. Okay. It's another thing to spend your time talking to people. Spend more time talking to people in the office than actual prospects. And I know this sounds bad, and so present company excluded, obviously present, with the exception of JGA, and I get it, there's a lot of real estate offices out there where you don't have this, and this was just my mindset, okay, so don't get mad. I actually look to talking to other associates as draining on my energy. Okay, did you guys hear that? I thought of conversing and hanging out by the water cooler or hanging out by the coffee pot with associates. Now this is pre-JGA, right? I was in a regular real estate office. I wasn't even with Keller Williams at the time. So Keller Williams, you're excluded from this too. I found that anytime I would find someone by the coffee machine or by the water, whatever, we're BSing about something negative. Like all of a sudden we're talking about, what was the score of the Lions game last night, and next thing you know, oh man, I had this appointment and it just slipped through my hands, someone from this company got it, whatever. Like, you don't realize how much that weighs on you and actually takes mental energy and actually drains your energy and enthusiasm. So, again, don't get mad. I honestly looked at conversing with the associates from my previous company as draining on my energy. So, if you're in an environment where you have a lot of positive and energetic people, you go find those people, and that's the people that you hang out with. You don't hang out with the negative Nancys. And no offense if your name's Nancy, by the way. Okay, number two. Number two reason on why you're not getting the results you want on the phones, you're giving in too easily. You're giving in way too easily. I learned early on, I don't remember who said it to me, but it stuck with me. They said, Jeff, you always have to remember there's two salespeople on the phone. You're a salesperson. The customer's a salesperson. Who's the better salesperson? And I thought to myself, well, what do you mean? What does that even mean? I'm the salesperson, they're the customer. How are they the salesperson? Well, okay, are you selling them on why they should meet with you? Yes. And are they selling you on why they shouldn't? Yes. Okay, you're both salespeople. So who's the better salesperson? Who's going to have the better scripts? Who's going to have the better objection handlers? Right? I think of the person on the other line as a salesperson. They're convincing me on all the reasons why they shouldn't meet with me or why they shouldn't set an appointment with me, and I'm convincing them on all the reasons why we should. Next I wrote down, and this is a huge, huge mindset on giving in too easily. Always assume when you let them off the phone, they will set an appointment with someone else. Always assume when you let them off the phone, they're going to set an appointment with someone else. So guess what happens when you have that mentality? You try harder, right? I can't let this person off the phone because you know what? Especially, oh man, I hated it when I got them so close. When I got them so close to setting an appointment, and then it became a lead follow-up type of thing. I always knew. No, this was, again, my mindset. I might have even wrote it down. It just came to me. I always knew, darn it, somebody else is going to get this one. That's what I said to myself. Somebody else is going to get this opportunity. The words did not enter my brain fast enough to somehow convert that to an appointment. And yes, I will be happy to follow up with them, and I'll be happy to stay on top of them, and I'll do what I can to try to get that appointment. But in my mind, they're gone. And because in my mind they're gone, guess what? I'm working harder to keep them on the phone. The next thing I wrote down is close at least 3 to 4 times. And here's the formula for that. You've heard this, and Mike Ferry taught us this a long, long time ago. Must close 3 to 5 times, or at least one more time than you're comfortable with. So I've had some people ask, well, what does that look like, right? I mean, how do you close someone and then turn around and close them again and then close again? Like, what does that look like? It's a very simple formula, okay? The script is essentially a series of questions. You ask questions, they answer, you ask questions, they answer, you ask questions, they answer. The script is a series of questions. When there's an opportunity to close, usually I'll start with a little bit of a trial close. Trial close is a soft close, meaning something to the effect of, well, when we get together, that's obviously something we'll cover. Okay, right? When I get confirmation on a trial close, I'm a little closer to a harder close. And then I go back to adding some questions. So here's the formula. It's questions, close. Questions, close. Questions, close. And when I say questions, I'm trying to think of 3 to 5, sometimes 2, 4, somewhere in that range of questions that I can ask them to keep them on the phone and actually distract them from the fact that I just closed and they said no. Did you guys hear that? I follow the script. I close. They're not willing to set an appointment with me right now. Sometimes I'll pivot and change the subject and ask different questions based on something, hey, no problem. If you're not ready to get together, this is how it sounds. No problem. If you're not ready to get together tomorrow, I understand you want to wait till spring. Totally understand. And if you don't mind me asking, earlier in the call, you said you were moving to Florida. Just out of curiosity, what takes you down to Florida? Do you have a place down there already? Do you know people that live down there? How long have you been going to Florida? What is it about Florida? How did you pick Florida? So if I could show you a way to help you get to Florida faster, would that be of interest to you? I just closed again, right? So close, question, 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 answer, answer, question, answer, close, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, close, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, close. That is what closing 3 to 5 times sounds like. It's not close and then think of another thing that you can say to close. It's close, pivot, get them onto something else by asking questions. When you see an opportunity, close again. That's what closing 3 to 5 times looks like, but always close one more time than you're comfortable with. Next on 8 reasons why you're not getting the results you want on the phones today. Number 3, you're not following up early enough. You're not following up early enough. Okay? Who has ever had a situation where you call back a lead and they've already signed, right? Jad's already raising his hand. They've already signed. They went with someone else. Okay? There's only one explanation for that. You didn't follow up early enough. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple thoughts on that. And by the way, again, for those that are just joining us, these are all the things of the culmination of 10 years of prospecting, right? I mean, when I say 10 years of prospecting, I was going on 3 appointments a week times 48, 50 weeks, 150, appointments a year, taking 100 listings a year, using this stuff. So this is 10 years of what I used, and now it is, it's 2018, 4 years of what I've observed with our own inside sales team and our outside sales agents that prospect every day. So you're getting the benefit of both personal experience and what I'm observing. And again, it's not directed towards anyone individually, but if you feel like I'm talking to you, then you're right. It is directed towards you individually. And that's okay, right? If you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And my job as your coach is to make you as uncomfortable as possible. Because if I never made you uncomfortable, then I'm not a coach. If there's things that I say that don't piss you off or make you upset, then I'm not a good coach. So from time to time when I do that, know that that's a good thing, all right? And don't get mad. Number 3, you're not following up early enough. I wrote down cut the time in half rule. I always use the cut the time in half rule, okay? Follow up with me in a week. Listen, it's Friday. We're going up north for the weekend. Why don't you give us a call on Tuesday or Wednesday? All right, no problem. And if it's okay with you, I'll probably follow up Monday morning because that's when I do my follow-ups. Well, we probably won't answer until Tuesday or Wednesday, but if you want to call us Monday morning, fine. I'm cutting whatever time it is they say in half. They tell me 2 weeks, I'm calling them in 1 week. And by the way, sometimes cutting in half isn't good enough. Because remember, telling you to follow up is them being a great salesperson and getting you to buy into why. Well, I got to talk to my wife, or we're going up north this weekend, or it just came off the market. We haven't really had time to think about it. Listen, they had their home on the market for a reason. They still want to sell. They're just not going to tell you that because they're a salesperson who's trying to convince you on why you don't need to set an appointment with them. So when quite frankly, going back to what I said in point number probably 1 or 2, if I'm going into follow-up mode, I'm just assuming somebody else is going to get that. Honestly, that's my thought process. And if that's my thought process, then I'm not giving up, right? I'm assuming that the minute I let up and say, okay, fine, I'll call you Tuesday, somebody else is going to get to them and have better rapport or ask better questions and set an appointment and beat me to it. So I would always cut the time in half, okay? Here's what you do in the meantime, because I've had people ask, well, what happens if they say call you in a month and, I call them in 2 weeks? They instructed me to call them in a month. Isn't it like a little offensive or strong? I wrote down, drop them sweet nothings in the meantime. Okay, so I'll give you some examples of that. Drop them sweet nothings in the meantime. So they tell you a month, your rule is 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, you're actually following up with them sooner than 2 weeks by dropping them little sweet nothings. And here's what I mean by that. A little sweet nothing. Okay, I'm talking to them on Monday. Okay, call us in a month. All right, if it's all right with you, I usually do my follow-up every couple weeks. So even though you said you wanted me to call you in a month, then I'll still call you in a month. You'll probably be hearing from me in 2 weeks, okay? Okay, well, we probably won't answer because we won't be ready at that time. No problem. If you don't answer, I'll just leave you a message. Wednesday, okay? They want a month. I said 2 weeks. Wednesday. Hey, just want to let you know I appreciate you taking my call the other day. Looking forward to talking to you in a few weeks. Monday. Hey, thanks again for taking my call. This article came out on how to get your home ready for sale this spring. Just wanted to share it with you. Thursday. Hey, looking forward to talking with you in a week or so. Here's the latest market stats. The market stats just came out. Here's what's going on in your neighborhood. I'm not asking for appointment. I'm not aggressive with them. Remember, they wanted a month. I got it down to 2 weeks, and I'm still sending them something every 3-4 days. Just something to keep present in their mind. Because if I don't do that, then somebody else is going to get that opportunity. So I'm sending them sweet nothings in the meantime. Market stats. Oh, by the way, I know you had your home on the market for a while. Not sure what type of plan of action your agent was using, and I know we're going to be talking in a few weeks, but I just thought I'd share with you our plan of action. This is everything we're doing to get homes sold. 2-3 days later. I'm staying top of mind. Remember, if you have a question, we'll have time for questions at the end. Just write them down. And please write them down, because a lot of times you get more out of the Q&A than actually in the notes. Number 4 on 8 reasons you're not getting the results you want on the phones. Number 4 is you're not using enough communication methods. Number 4 is you're not using enough communication methods. Now, before I get into the 4 basic methods, which you all know, so you probably don't have to write them down, I do want to kind of make a statement of something that I have observed and experienced personally. And that is, I always had a better contact to appointment ratio when I was face-to-face. Okay? So I'm going to put that out there. Face-to-face is actually more effective than phone prospecting. But since we're doing phone prospecting, I'm not going to get into the 8 things you should be doing face-to-face. But I will tell you, phone prospecting is more efficient. Right? So if I go see 10 people face-to-face, I got at least 2 that are going to set an appointment with me, are going to be happy to see me, or I'm going to convert in a lead and I'm going to follow up with them later. If I make 10 contacts over the phone, I might only have 1 or maybe a half, right? Because it might take me 15 contacts to get 1 appointment or 1 really, really good lead. The difference is to go see 10 people face-to-face, it's going to take me 3-4 hours, 2 hours. Drive time to wherever I'm going, walk in the neighborhood, getting people to answer, walking from house to house. When I'm prospecting and following these 8 rules or what not to do or however we flip them around into positives, I can talk to 7, 8, 10 people an hour. So technically, even though I have to talk to more to get an appointment set, I still will do better over the phones than in person. Okay, so I wanted to drop that out there. So since we're focusing on 8 reasons why you're not getting results over the phones, these are the 4 methods that you should be using. These are the communication methods. You're not using enough communication methods. You guys all know what they are, so you don't have to write them down. But what I will, I'm going to say them, and what I would challenge you to do is figure out a way. This is the challenge, okay? This is the question. How can I use these 4 methods without getting distracted? Okay, so we can talk about solutions another time, but I want you to think about how you can use these 4 methods without getting distracted. Because, oh, by the way, that's the number 1 reason why people get off track with their prospecting, because they get distracted. You're not using enough communication methods. The 4 are obviously phone calls, text messages, emails, and social media. When I was prospecting for those 10 years, texts were just starting to become kind of popular. Emails, people were starting to use emails more. There was no such thing as social media. Now you can look up anyone's email address, pop it into the search bar of Facebook, or put their name in Google, or their email in Google, and all of a sudden you'll find their social media channels. Okay? You better believe if I went back on the phones today, I would set aside 20, 30, 40, however many minutes of my routine in the morning for social media reach outs. Because I'm going to try to reach out to as many people as I can through as many channels as I can. Phone, email, text, and social. Number 5 reason you're not getting the results you want today on the phones. And by the way, when I say phone and text, oh yeah, I'm going through my phone calls for a half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And before my mindset break, I'm going through everyone that I really want, and I'm shooting them all texts. Hey, Just tried reaching out to you. You available? Hey, is your home still available for sale? That was my favorite one. Hey, this is Jeff Glover with Keller Williams. Is your home still available for sale? You want to get responses on expireds and for sale by owners? That's the best message you can send. Why? Because you could have a buyer. So they're going to respond to you. And usually they're going to respond with, do you have a buyer? And then that's okay. That starts the conversation. And then, by the way, starts the conversation means, do you have time for a quick phone call? Okay, so when they respond with, do you have a buyer? Because a lot of times that's what they're going to respond with. Do you have time for a quick phone call? Not saying yes, not saying no. What I want to do is get them on the phone. Because it is very difficult to sell. That is, by the way, the goal. When you reach out via social media, text, or email, the goal is to get them on the phone. And to not do a script through text or email. There's no body language, there's no tonality, there's none of that. You can't sell. It's a lot harder to sell. So my goal is to send a message. Is your home still available for sale? To an expired, I'm sending this. I know it expired. I'm asking, is your home still available for sale? For sale by owner. Is your home still available for sale? That is the best text, social media, Facebook message, whatever you want, you can send to get a response. And then, of course, from there, you'll have to respond with, do you have 2 minutes to talk? Do you have a buyer? Maybe. I don't know. No, we're taking it off the market. Whatever they say. Do you have 2 minutes to chat? Hey, if I get 10 people, if I send it out to 10 people and I get 1 or 2, I got 1 or 2 more contacts that I wouldn't have had. Number 5 reason why you're not getting the results you want on the phones. Quite simply, number 5, you're not making enough attempts. You're not making enough attempts. What does that mean? Well, I'll just tell you what my attempts look like, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm observing. So, this was before CRMs and technology and all this. I had a folder, and on that folder it said 0 to 7, and it had all the leads that came in for the past week in that folder. Okay, and for those that have heard me talk before, I really had 2 0 to 7 folders. I had all the 0 to 7 lead follow up, and then I had the 0 to 7 new prospects folder. So my new prospects folder was all of the leads that came in the last 7 days. And my job was to literally every day never have more than 8 days worth of new leads. By the way, a new lead is someone that I haven't had a conversation with yet, right? Because the goal is to take it from a prospect to lead follow-up or to an appointment set, right? So these are prospects. I have 7 days worth of prospects. And you guys know my favorite prospects were for sale by owners and expired. So those are my 7 days of new prospects. So my goal every day was to get through that folder at least once or twice, right? I'd get through today's stuff. I'd get through yesterday's stuff. I'd get through 2 days ago. I'd get through 3 days ago. I'd go 4 or 5 days. I'd go 7 days back every single day. At least once or twice a day. So in 7 days, I have 14 attempts on one prospect. 14 attempts on one prospect because I kept, when they got to day 8, by the way, they got thrown in the trash. Right? So I only kept 7 in there. 7 all the time. 7, 7, 7, 7. And sometimes, depending if it was the first of the month, it'd get real thick. When I got to day 8, guess what? Day 1 is going in the trash. Now we're on, February 2nd through February 8th. On February 3rd, I'm on February 3rd, or, you know what I'm saying. I go back 7 days, not forward. So we're not making enough attempts. 0 to 7 every day times 2 means I'm trying to reach them 14 times in 7 days. People ask all the time, you have an ISA team of 6, 7, 8, 10 people calling all the same leads. Why is that? So we can get our attempts up. Because good, bad, right, or wrong, not everyone has the same intensity that I have. And I know it sounds silly, and I'm not saying I could certainly do the job just myself as an entire ISA team, but that's one of the reasons why we have to have so many inside sales associates. So we're making sure we're reaching out to them at least 14, 15, 20, 18, 13 times a day. Or in a 7-day period, I'm sorry. So you're not making enough attempts. B, I wrote down different times of day. My favorite were 8 a.m., noon, dinner time, or right after dinner. 8 a.m., noon, dinner time, or right after dinner. That's when I always got the most contacts. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 9:30, somewhere in there. Again, lunchtime for about 90 minutes, and then dinner or after dinner. Your contacts per hour will change depending on the time of the day. For instance, if you're calling from 8 to 9, you might talk to 13, 14 people. But if you're calling from 1 to 2, by the way, 13, 14 people if you're calling with intensity, and you're not, by the way, intensity is not researching the prospects before you call them. It drives me nuts. I can't tell you over the years how many agents I've seen like sitting there and researching the lead they're about to call. Who cares? Who cares why it expired or what it should be priced at or what's going on? Get on the phone, have a conversation with them. They like you, they don't. You set an appointment, you don't. You move on, right? Obviously, you're making sure if you got the list, they're expired. So it's not like you got to check to see if they've been relisted. You already got notification that they expired. So different times of day. 8 a.m., noon, dinner time, or right after dinner were my favorite times. Next, I wrote down on your not making enough attempts. Remember that timing is half the battle. Timing is half the battle. Timing, getting them to answer, is half the battle. So how do you solve the timing issue? Very simple. You increase your attempts. You increase the amount of time that you reach out to them. If you want to catch them, because by the way, a lot of times the person that sets the appointment with them is the person that was there at the right time. So how do you increase the odds that you're going to be there at the right time? You don't just call them once or twice. You increase your attempts. Number 6 reasons on why you're not getting results you want on the phones. This one's my favorite. Because this one will cure any skills or scripts problem that someone may have. This is the reason why our new ISAs will sometimes set an appointment their first few days or their first week over someone that's been here for a while and they talk to the same person. Okay, now there's other reasons too. Sometimes it wasn't a strong lead, so they shouldn't have set an appointment. So for you senior ISAs or OSAs, I understand why there's some you don't set appointments with. And when we're new ISAs, we want to try to set whatever we can, right? But there's one reason why ISAs, especially the new ones, have this happen over some of our more veteran associates, and that is energy and enthusiasm. You never have more excitement, energy, and enthusiasm about this business naturally as you do when you first start. So I wrote down, you don't have enough energy and enthusiasm. And that's why, and Floyd Wickman taught me this early on. It was great. He said, okay, everyone, he starts off his class, and he probably does this in all of them. Okay, who's new? He goes through who's been in the business 10 years, who's been in the business 15 years, and who's new. And he always has the same line to the people that say they're new. He says, good, stay that way. And he says, what I mean is because that energy, excitement, and enthusiasm you have for the business will start to wane as time goes on. And it's going to take a lot of effort to keep it up there. So you don't have enough energy and enthusiasm. And I wrote down, and I want everyone to do this example with me, okay? I want everyone to take your right hand if you're right-handed and your left hand if you're left-handed. Okay, so if you're lefty, use your left hand. If you're right hand, use your right hand. Okay? For those that have been to some Mike Ferry retreats, you know what I'm doing because he does this to us from time to time. All right, now what I want you to do is take your right elbow if you're right-handed or your left elbow if you're left-handed and just put it down on your knee. Okay, so I'm right-handed, so I'm putting it down on my knee. Okay, now take your hand and form a phone or peace sign or whatever it is, cowabunga, whatever. Okay, and put it to your ear. All right, got it. Everyone's on the phone.
Yep.
Cool. We're all on the phone.
Yep.
Yep. All right, now try to have some energy and enthusiasm. Yeah, it's not easy, is it?
No.
Exactly.
I love my life!
Right?
Enthusiasm.
Yes, it's hard to have energy and enthusiasm when you have that kind of body language. So, stand up when you get a live one. If you don't want to stand all day, fine. Just stand up when you get someone live on the phone. That solves that problem right away. One of Mike's first trainers, his name is David Long, he used to say, I don't care if you walk into their house and throw up on their table. If you do it with energy and enthusiasm, you're going to beat out half the agents out there. Of course, he's being silly when he says that, but the point is that if you're excited and energetic and full of energy, guess what? You are attractive. And if you're attractive, then people will want to continue to talk to you. If you're dull and mundane and boring, guess what? Sorry, pal, don't have time for this, gotta go. Now, I get it. From time to time, and we've had some ISAs and OSAs that I've had to do this to, if you're naturally too energetic and too overly enthusiastic, especially our high I's, you might actually have to sit down when you make phone calls, or when you get someone on the phone that is more analytical or more dull or same tonality, right? Because it's mirroring and matching, right? But I don't care about the mirroring and matching so much as I care is energy and enthusiasm trumps mirroring and matching all day long. I'd rather you have energy and enthusiasm than worrying about mirroring and matching them. Next point under you don't have enough energy and enthusiasm. Remember the 50 minutes on and 10-minute off rule that I followed for 10 years will help you with this. 50 minutes on and 10 minutes off rule will help you with this. And I'm telling you, I wish some of you guys were with me when I was at Coldwell Banker with Century 21, because I was like a machine. I literally had like a timer set when it was time to get back on the phones. I wouldn't go 11 or 12 or 15 minutes. It was 50 on, 10 minutes off. That was how high my intensity was. And guess what? I always got all the listing awards. Because while everyone else was wondering, or BSing about why I was succeeding, I was in my office focused on what I needed to do, or in my cube. By the way, and I get it, for those of you that are like, well, I'm in a cube, I don't, there's so many distractions. Okay, I did $5 million in sales volume before I got my first office. Okay, $5 million. So for those that are like, wow, how'd you do it? I got distractions, I got somebody next to me. I had a double headset on. I could not hear what was going around me. Remember, I did not want to talk to those around me, because when I talk to associates in my office, present company excluded, it's draining on my energy, and I need all the energy I have for the prospect. I don't care about the sale that fell through, or the listing that they didn't get, or the appointment that slipped through their fingers. I don't care about any of that. It drains my energy. I was focused on what I needed to do, and I had a double headset on so there were no distractions. You don't have enough energy and enthusiasm. Next I wrote down, energy and enthusiasm is at least 25% of what we're trying to accomplish. And you'll see that when I talk about the 93% rule. And I already said it, so you don't have to write this down. And listen, I'm not saying you want everyone in the office to hate you. Okay? People in the office, well, I'm sure there was a handful that didn't like me. All right? But people in the office knew what my goal was, knew what my intention was, and they understood why I was so intense. So I wrote down, if energy and enthusiasm, spending too much time with coworkers drains your energy and enthusiasm. I'm sorry. We got a lot of good associates here at JGA who are positive, they're energetic. Spend your time with them. But don't spend too much time. Okay? Because guess what happens? It's natural. It's human nature. You don't think I know, at lunch we're bitching about the new policy, or what do you think of this, or, I don't know about that, or, sometimes he makes decisions too quickly and probably doesn't think about them, right? Like, I know those conversations happen. It's normal. We're human. But the more time you spend in those conversations, the less energy you have in setting appointments. So think about that next time. Number 7 reason on why we're not getting the results we want on the phones. You're not paying attention to the 93% rule. You're not paying attention to the 93% rule. Real simple. Write these 3 numbers down and just write them in a line. Okay? So write a number. Right below that, write the next number. Right below that, write the next number. First number is 55. Below that number, I want you to write the number 38. Below that, I want you to write the number 7. For those who have been around for a while, you know where I'm going with this. You're not paying attention to the 93% rule. Here it is. 50% of your communication, going up to the 55% of your communication is body language. And if you don't think they can hear your body language because you're over the phone, you're mistaken. Why do you think? When I was with my previous company, we had a thing called the Success Center. And it was a really cool concept. And quite frankly, for those that are with JGA, this is kind of how our prospecting ISA program started. So the Success Center, we had one in Sterling Heights on the east side of Detroit. We had one in Plymouth. It was in Ann Arbor. They moved it to Plymouth. One in Plymouth. And it didn't matter whether your office was in Northville or Ann Arbor or whatever. You had to spend 90 days driving to the Success Center. You weren't even assigned a desk at an office, not even a cubicle at an office until you completed your 90 days. And something in 90 days, you had to have like 3 listings and 2 sales or something. It wasn't a high standard. But reality is it taught people how to prospect. And so the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because we had all these stand-up cubes. They were all, nobody got a chair. Okay, we had a training room and an area with all these stand-up cubes. And no chairs. The chairs were in the training room. So if you wanted to go sit down, you could go in the training room. If you wanted to have lunch, you go have lunch in the training room. You want to take a mindset break, you go in the training room. And in these cubes was like a 2x3 mirror in each one of these stand-up cubes. And the reason why we installed those is because of the 93 rule, the 93% rule. 50% of your body language is your smile, your facial expressions, the use of your hands. They can hear all that through the phone. Okay? We don't have to go back to the silly example, but I would have probably even said, all right, now try smiling. It's even harder to smile, right? 55% is body language. 38% is tonality. 38% is tonality. What is tonality? Tonality is your volume, your dialect, which could help us or hurt us, by the way. You know, that is a challenge, and Mike Ferry says all the time to people that aren't that great at speaking English to go get a voice coach, because your dialect could help you in some cases, or it could hurt you. I said your volume and your inflection. Inflection is your upswings, your downswings, your tonality. Finally, 7, the words we use. 7% of communication is the words we use. So, for those of you who are like, I got to know the scripts. I got to master the scripts. I got to be able to handle every single objection before I get on the phones. That's great. And it's good to get to 7%. But guess what? You're not going to get higher than 7%. So if you're thinking you got to have it mastered, I got to know these scripts inside and out, I got to memorize them. Okay, that's good, but we need to work on the other 93%. And that takes time, and that's something obviously we work on over time. Again, if you think you need help with this, you stand up, you put a mirror in front of you, it'll solve your 93% problem. Finally, number 8, reason why you're not getting the results that you want on the phones. And this one's going to sound very cliche, but I'm going to get into some details so you're not like, oh yeah, Jeff, you say that all the time. Number 8 is you're quite simply not talking to enough people. You're just not talking to enough people. Now, if you're an OSA and you're out on appointments, you're negotiating contracts, you're meeting with clients, you're stopping by an inspection, you're going to a closing, I understand you got things going on throughout the day. You have to be very much more disciplined with your time than an ISA, where they have, essentially all day to lead generate, prospect. The rule of thumb I've always followed, and it's worked for me for 10 years, okay? And I know our best ISAs, who by the way become our best OSAs, have always managed to maintain 8 to 10 contacts per hour on average. 8 to 10 contacts per hour. Now, you've heard me say that, so I'm going to break that down, what that means. 8 to 10 contacts per hour. That means some hours, if you're prospecting with intensity and you follow rule number 1 through 7, some hours you're going to talk to 13, 14, 15 people. Other hours, prospecting with full intensity, an entire hour ago, the clock goes from 12 all the way to 12, or 50 minutes in my case. I'm going to only talk to 4 or 5 people in an hour. But on average, it works out to 8 to 10, if you're following 1 through 7. Now, if you're not following 1 through 7, in an entire day, you're going to talk to 30 or 35 people. Which drives me nuts, because I remember for those 10 years, I would prospect from 8 to 10 and never have less than 20 to 25 contacts. I would have 20 to 25 contacts in that 2 hours. Why? Because I was intense. I had no distractions. I took a little mindset break. I got right back at it. 8 to 10 contacts per hour on average. And I want you to look at this, especially if you're new, because I say to our new OSAs, right? And by the way, if you're a newer OSA, I probably give you a little hard time about this. Okay, it's amazing to watch. Our ISAs are averaging 35, 40 contacts a day. Whatever that number is, it's, by the way, not enough to get the results you want, which is why we're on this point. And then all of a sudden they become an OSA, and they're down to 10 or 15. Okay. Did you just all of a sudden have a bunch of closings that you had to attend? Did you all of a sudden have 7 listings that you had to do paperwork to get in? Why would your contacts per day drop if you're averaging 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever that number is when you become an OSA? Why would that go down to 15? What else do you have to do? The answer is nothing. The number should stay the same, if not increase, because there's more excitement. You get to go on all your own appointments now. Until you get to a point where you're busy. By the way, once you get busy with listings and appointments and closings and everything else, then that number can come down. I wrote down, think about this, especially for the ISAs. If you're working 10 to 8 or 8 to 6, that's a 10-hour day. 10 hours on the schedule, right? You're not actually working 10 hours a day, and I'm okay with that. It's built that way. You actually only end up working about 7 if you're doing it with intensity. Okay? So if you're getting 35 contacts a day, don't get mad. You're honestly only working about 4.5, 5 hours a day. So think about this. 10 to 8 or 8 to 6 is 10 hours. If you take an hour for lunch, plus 1 10-minute break every hour, just like I did, 50 on, 10 off, 50 on, 10 off, 50 on, 10 off. That's not even 2 hours, but I'll give you 2 hours. It's 100 minutes. Okay, so that's 20 minutes short, but I'm going to round up. I'm going to give you 2 hours plus the 1 hour lunch. That leaves 7 hours of dial time. That includes a 10-minute break per hour. I don't know many jobs where you can get a 10-minute break every 50 minutes to work, okay? So it's pretty fair. That's actually 7 hours of dial time. If you're truly dialing for 7 to 10 hours and you're averaging even 8 contacts an hour, you're going to get 55 to 60 contacts a day. ISAs, that's the goal. OSAs, I understand. It can't happen, right? Because you got to go on appointments, you got to negotiate, you got to do price reductions, everything else. But you can at least get 15 or 20. You can get your couple hours in the morning out of the way before everything gets busy. And then finally I wrote down, I'm not talking to enough people. This was my, if ever I was short on contacts, right? If ever for some reason I had 18 contacts by 10 a.m. or noon and not 25, I liked, by the way, my goal every day as an OSA was 25, right? Jolene, you were here when we were prospecting before advertising. That was my thing. Every day, 25 contacts, every day. I didn't care. I was getting 25 a day. If I didn't have my 25, I would penalize myself. Again, it goes back to intensity. Are you an intense person? If you want to make a lot of money, I encourage you to be an intense person. I would penalize myself with this simple rule. If I fell short on the contacts, I had to make them up at night. That was very simple. And even if I had an appointment, even if I had a 6 or a 6:30 or a 5:30 or whatever appointment, I had a simple rule. If I didn't get my 25, I had to go back to the office, no matter where I was at. Even if I was 10 minutes from home, I'd drive past my house, go back to the office, and call for another 45 minutes to an hour to get 10 or 15 or 12 or 8 more contacts, whatever I needed to make up. And if it was the summertime, I mean, I would call, 7:30, 8, 8:30 up to 9 o'clock. If it's the winter, I would go from 7 to 8 or 7 to 8:15. And when I say 7 to 8 or 8:15, that doesn't mean I was, if I knew I was done mentally at 8 o'clock, okay, I don't start shutting down at 7:45 p.m. I'm not like wrapping it up and saying, okay, 15 minutes before I'm out of here, winding it down. Average agents do that. People that want to make a lot of money, go till 8:05, 8:15. You know what? I just set an appointment 30 minutes ago. I'm going to give it another 5 contacts. That's what high achievers do. That's what people that make 6 figures in this business do. The average, it's almost time to go. Let's start shutting up shop. And guess what you're doing? You're leaving that opportunity for someone like me. And that someone like me is still out there. Every market has 10 or 15 people that are just as intense prospecting just like I was. And I know that, and it hasn't changed, because when I was prospecting, it was always 6, 8, 10, 15 people that I was up against every day. Today, it's the same thing. Our ISAs call. You're the 5th call. What do you mean? It's only been 20 minutes, right? And that's a light day. We know there's always 7, 10, 15 people. There's a lot more when bold comes around. And then don't worry, the average agents go back to being average and they stop. And then it goes back down to 7 or 8 and not 15 or 20. So I wanted to share with you 2 things. Number 1, the 8 things that you're not doing enough of if you want to get better results on the phone from my experience and also my observation. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I hope you'll take it to heart. Maybe watch this again if you didn't catch the beginning. And let's have a great day. See you guys.